I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 to order. Clerk, could we please have roll call?
7 present, 5 absent.
7 present, and I believe we have 4 absent because Commissioner Frederickson is no longer with us. And so he's with us, but he's not on the board anymore. That kind of sounded weird saying that, right? A little morbid on that, but that's not the intent of that, what we had there. So Hattie, our Commissioner Thatcher.
That's okay. I'm cool with Hattie. The Commissioner O'Neill just texted me, and he is just about to walk in.
Okay.
But he's just running a little bit late, so he will be here.
Go ahead and check, man. Okay. So we have 8 present, 3 absent, and 1 seat that is vacant currently. Okay. Commissioner Sorge, could you lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the May 15th, 2024 regular meeting. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I do have a couple of friendly amendments to the minutes. On the regular section, Section 1, Number 3, presentations, Communication 2024-214. Let me see what my amendment was. The BPSOU website is listed in there incorrectly. It just says bps.com. Okay. I just want to make sure that gets corrected to BPSOU.
Okay.
For the public. And then on the Committee of the Whole, Section 2, Communication number 2024-176, should be a concur and place on file. That was the communication for Officer Blue.
Okay. So we have
All right.
correction to the minutes.
Yep.
With BIPSU added to the minutes instead of just BPSO, and then on communication number 2024-176 to have it as concurrent place on file.
So I will make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote?
It's so hard to see that.
Yeah.
It's really dark.
And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
7 yea, 0 nay.
7 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. Moving on, we don't have any items not addressed on the agenda tonight, so we'll move to the Chief Executive's report. I just want to commend everybody that ran for office. Last night was a long night, I think, for all those who are running, and I believe that all of our commissioners that were running are all advancing to the November election. I want to commend everyone that was on the ballot for putting your name in the hat and wanting to serve the public. And so I just want to congratulate those that are moving on, commend those that put their hat in, but we're not successful. But I think we have a really good pool of candidates as we move forward. And so as the elections go on, we'll move on to November and see where it all lands. So I'd also like to talk about, I went over to the Montana Festival in Bozeman. It was the first annual festival, and it was bringing together entrepreneurs, people in the industry, bringing development and businesses into Montana and looking to see what opportunities are there. And so we made a lot of connections over there. I was fortunate enough to be on the mayor's panel along with the mayor from Bozeman, the mayor from Helena, and the mayor from Billings, and got to answer questions for the people in the audience, it was sold out crowd, and it was a group of people that we normally wouldn't get to be in front of, and it was hugely successful, and I believe I may have them attracted to come to Butte next year to have the Montana Festival here. And so it was a great place to go and make connections and really speak to people that we normally don't get in front of to talk about Butte and why it's a great place to invest here. So with that, I'm going to move past the Chief Executive's report and move to any public comment on any item on the agenda tonight. You can come forward, state your name, your address, and what item you'd like to speak on. Seeing none, then we're going to move on to, we would be going to section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and presentations, but we are going to move section number 3 ahead of section number 1. And so section 3, we have one communication number 2024-251. J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence in the appointment of Sean Frederickson, 3070 Atherton Lane, Butte, Montana, 59701, as Director of Parks and Recreation Department. And so we move this here, and because I think everyone's familiar with Sean, and so we're gonna. What's that? Yeah, where is he? He's kind of hidden behind us here. Oh, he's way back there. So I'd like to invite Sean to come up to the stand here, and then I first would like to speak about the Parks and Recreation Department and the Director. This is near and dear to my heart, as that was my first role in local government, coming in as a Parks and Recreation Director, and it's an incredibly important role for Butte-Silver, and you know, the way I look at it, somebody that it requires a lot of heart and dedication to our community and loves our community and wants to make it better, and there's opportunities to do that in that department, and the rewards are greater than the work that goes into it. And so going through, people ask, you know, how did we get to the candidate that we did? Did we just appoint it? No, we didn't. We screened a lot of different candidates, went through interviews, and we got the right person for the job. And so I want to congratulate Sean after we get to the point of having the council possibly approve this here. So, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. It's my pleasure to make a motion to concur with communication number 2024-251 and place it on file.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication. Now I just buried it here. 2024-251. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Congratulations. So now is the time for you to speak to us.
Yeah, well, this is one of the stranger things that I've had to do sitting up here 2 weeks ago. But be prepared for the longest appointment speech in the history of council. No, but yeah, first order of business: all dogs are allowed in parks. But no, I want to share a few statistics from the Butte Parks Master Plan. See, it's not sitting on a shelf already. So Butte-Silver Parks Department oversees 56 park sites and facilities with a total of 374 developed park acres and 3,863 natural open space areas. Butte-Silver Parks and Recreation Department has incredible employees with not a lot of resources to support them. In fact, Butte-Silver Parks and Rec is by far the lowest funded Parks and Rec department when compared to other major cities in Montana, and the lowest funded department within the city and county of Butte-Silver, and it's not even its own department. However, this is a discussion for another day. I just ask that you think about these facts as we work together to move the natural infrastructure up the priority list. It is proven that better parks make for better communities across the board. Now I'd like to thank a few people. I want to thank this council. It has been a privilege to serve with you these last 6 years. I want to thank former commissioners that I served with, in particular Bud Walker. When Bud retired from council a few years ago, he was insistent that I replace him on the Parks and Recreation Board. And if Bud wouldn't have recommended me, there's no way I would be standing here right now. So thanks, Bud. Thank you to Chief Executive Gallagher. Over the years, I have voted a few times against JP's recommendations, and I think it's a testament to his leadership that he would look past those votes and still hire me. So thank you. I want to thank Ed Hurd for acting interim director. Ed has kept the train on the tracks and should be commended for his hard work during that time. I'd also like to acknowledge some family here tonight. I have my dad, Dan Fredrickson, and my in-laws, Bill and Marissa Newman, are here. There's numerous aunts and uncles and cousins here, but I'll spare you the whole family tree because we'll be here all night. And finally, I'm going to embarrass them again, but I want to recognize my children, both park lovers, my son Clark and my daughter Helen, and of course, my amazing wife Ivy. Thank you for always supporting me and everything you do for our family. Before I go, I'd like to leave you with one more statistic. This comes from the National Recreation and Parks Association, and now I am speaking as a former politician. But U.S. adults want their political leaders to fully fund parks and recreation. In fact, 62% of U.S. adults crossing ages, income levels, and political affiliation are more likely to vote for politicians such as mayors or chief executives, county executives, or council members who make park and recreation funding a priority. Thank you, and go enjoy your parks and trails.
So, Sean, before you go, first I wanna change the narrative from Chairman Fredrickson to now Director Fredrickson, and welcome to Sean's family here, because you're speaking the lingo already. I'm so impressed of where you're going. That you're gonna knock it out of the park, and we're lucky to have you. And so, if any of the commissioners would like to make a comment, all right, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Nice timing, Sean. Budget cycle coming up, but I appreciate it back there. No, just truly want to wish you congratulations. I know Commissioner Shea touched on it a little bit, 2 weeks ago, but I'm grateful for your mentorship. I was able to call you when I had questions. I could even have a beer with you when I had questions, and so I just very much appreciate that. So I do think that our Parks Department is in great hands, as Chief Executive Gallagher indicated by your speech tonight. And so I just want to wish you congratulations, and I will give Clark and Helen a shout out to the final one from a commissioner. Shout out Clark and Helen.
Oh, all right. With that, we will move on to, and so go out and celebrate with your family, take some pictures. I think it's important. And Clark and Helen, make sure you guys are the ones in front. Thank you for being here tonight. All right. We'll now move back to Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. We have one communication number 2024-269, Julia Crane, Butte-Silver Bowl Planning Director, requesting Council Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing for June 5th and recommend that the Council approve a comprehensive plan amendment number 20-00002 upon approval, a resolution to be prepared and is also in is on the June 5th, 2024 agenda. Director Crane.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioners, we're here tonight with comprehensive plan amendment for the Safety, Health, and Resiliency Plan. The Planning Board held a public hearing and recommended the Council of Commissioners adopt the SHARP plan as an appendix to the comprehensive plan at its April 25th meeting. I don't think I know how to use this thing. Barb, I ruined it. Thanks, Barb.
You're not the one that I thought would be technologically challenged.
I can surprise everybody. Kathy, I don't know why it won't go to the PowerPoint.
There we go.
All right. A long-range comprehensive plan serves as a blueprint for how residents would like to see development occur over a future time period and sets goals, objectives, policies, and implementation strategies for all aspects of development. A comprehensive plan, or a growth policy as it's referred to in the state of Montana, is not law, and it doesn't confer any authority, but guides development of policies such as zoning and land use, which is a regulating law that guides what can and cannot happen on a piece of property. Montana state statute allows communities to adopt additional information, policies, goals, or plans in addition to the growth policy and attach it as an appendix, so long as the plan aligns with the comprehensive plan's goals. In Butte, we have incorporated the Housing Strategic Plan most recently, the Uptown Master Plan, the Parks Master Plan, and we are now seeking to include the SHARP Plan. As part of our work, we are tasked with evaluating the plan for its alignment with the 7 guiding principles of the comprehensive plan, which we evaluated against the goal to enhance community character and a unique sense of place, respect of heritage while embracing change, promoting wise growth, maintaining recreational access, sustaining equitable housing access and affordability, providing for economic opportunity, and ensuring a clean and healthful environment. The SHARP plan is an advantageous attachment to the comp plan as it contains significantly more specificity regarding strategies to maintain vital infrastructure, protect public health, and sustain our economy despite environmental change. One such example is evaluating the comprehensive plan goal to enhance community character and reinforce unique sense of place. Our unique urban and rural environments are part of our high quality of life. During the public process for the comprehensive plan, over and over again, residents of the community indicated pristine landscapes, clean water, fresh air, and our incomparable urban center are as important. These areas are connected by infrastructure like potable water supply, which are vulnerable to wildfire risks and future changes in precipitation. The SHARP plan is one that sets forth several strategies to accomplish this goal by identifying projects and uniquely sources of funding for the projects, such as a drought management plan, which ensures reliable sources of water during times of drought. Or because wildfires can compromise air quality, it provides recommendations for establishing methods to filter air or locations to find refuge where clean air is prevalent. Strategies to sustain affordability and equity in housing choice are furthered by recommendations for residential retrofit, allowing for renewable residential energy sources, such as solar arrays or heat pumps, or weatherization and in-home composting projects. All of these at a scale and a price that aligns with individual residents' financial capability. Strategies, the plan is novel in its approach to identify funding sources for infrastructure improvements and other public investments while reducing economic burden on the taxpayer by securing grant funds. And I'd like to bring up my colleagues with Water and Environmental Technologies, Megan Terry and Stephen Coe, who are going to assist with the rest of this presentation as they were collaborators as part of the Resilient Butte Steering Committee.
Thanks, Julia. Stephen Coe with Water Environmental Technologies, 480 East Park. So yeah, I had the opportunity to not only be on the steering committee, but help produce the plan. So it's a pretty cool plan. Megan will, when I get done talking about some of the leading into the plan, Megan will talk about some of the results of the plan and the metrics that got us there. So this plan started in June 2022 from a workshop that took place on Montana Tech campus in Butte. This workshop was called the EcoAdapt Workshop, a workshop in person with 28 stakeholders from Butte-Silver. This event evaluated community vulnerability and adaptations and set the groundwork for the development of this plan. From here, the National Center of Appropriate Technology, NCAT, headquartered here in Butte, applied and received a grant to create this plan. A steering committee known as Resilient Butte was then formed with 13 community members to oversee the creation of this plan. Members of the steering committee included voices from Butte-Silver, CFWEP, Northwestern Energy, NCAT, medical community, and more. So what is a SHARP plan, or what is a SHARP? SHARP stands for Sustainability, Health, and Resiliency Plan. This plan does several things. In the first portion of the plan, it identifies the vulnerabilities and risks associated with weather, climate, that are subject to our area, or specific to our area, excuse me. The major categories that were identified during this process that pose immediate risk and vulnerabilities to BSB were our water resources, with impacts ranging from potential drought, low snowpack levels, wildfire frequency, our public health, including air quality, issues during smoke events, potential and increased chronic health conditions, and disparity of services to disadvantaged populations, our energy resources, including increased cost burden for heating and cooling, increased complexities with providing continuous reliable services for our industries, and our proximity to contaminated sites, which has the potential to be impacted by severe stormwater runoff events. In the second step of the SHARP plan, a large effort was undertaken to gather public input, spread information regarding the plan, and help focus efforts on community drive approaches. A comprehensive survey was released in July of 23 to help gather input. This survey found that 86% of respondents were personally concerned about impacts due to wildfire, drought, flooding, and more in our community. The most pressing issues identified by the survey were energy costs, water conservation, and wildfires. When asked what populations our community felt were most at risk, the community responded with people with medical conditions, children, and low-income households. The survey also tested the community's feelings towards programs or policies that would help reduce vulnerabilities in the largest supporters in favor of increasing tree canopies, green infrastructure, promoting energy efficiency, enhancing bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and reducing waste to the landfill. When asked how the community would measure a successful plan, the #1 response was to implement as soon as possible. As we look at the strategies that were taken from this plan, it's important to look back on some of these statistics and understand the influence the community input had on the actions, items, and approach that was atypical of most planning documents. So looking at our public outreach, throughout the process, the plan took several approaches to help spread the word. Some of those are listed above. It was pretty taxing, actually. The group Resilient Butte had a dedicated website and Facebook page to update and spread news of these events. The survey was released on a flyer that was displayed at over 30 businesses across town, displayed for 2 weeks in the rotunda of the courthouse, released on the Butte-Silver Facebook page and website, and advertised on Butte 411. In addition to these measures, the plan also presented to a large crowd during Folk Fest. Picture up there. We had 2 separate community workshops. We were on the radio, 2 different radio stations, presented at 2 Montana-wide conferences, and recently were involved in a panel at the National Land Adaptation Forum. And now, Megan, your turn.
I'm Megan Terry. I'm with Water and Environmental Technologies, and I'll take over for Stephen here. So going into step 3, this kind of got into the nuts and bolts of what's actually in the plan. So in we completed a greenhouse gas inventory for Butte-Silver. This inventory used a national standard to accurately inventory the local releases of greenhouse gas from energy consumption, transportation, solid waste, fugitive emissions, and air transport. This process not only completed a study of emissions over 1 year, but also completed a greenhouse gas inventory over 3 years to better understand the trends, as this was the first inventory of its kind in Butte-Silver. This inventory not only helps us to set realistic goals, but also helps us to track the progress and understand baseline information. Butte-Silver can not only use this information to understand where the emissions are coming from, such as 55% of emissions in the county coming from energy alone, but can also use this information in decision making and funding. An example of this might be to illustrate that 18.5% of emissions come from solid waste in Butte-Silver. By diverting waste, we can not only reduce emissions, but increase the longevity of our landfill, therefore having a real dollar savings. Then we can potentially use this inventory to apply for grants for solutions to divert that waste, such as composting or biochar processing to offset costs. Step 4 of this plan is what kind of sets it apart and helps to reinforce the importance of planning documents that also align with implementation. After identifying community risks, needs, and vulnerabilities, the project team created a decision matrix that looked at several elements, including implementation strategies, potential funding sources, and action items that will reinforce other planning documents in the county and in our community, leading to larger, more successful projects. Early in the project, the team developed an outline for state and federal funding that was released in 2024. These large federal funding opportunities often require the municipality to show a planning document or project that is already in the planning stages to be able to apply for these funds. Recognizing the funds, the project team then aligned these funding opportunities with action items in the plan to start applying for money to implement projects before this plan was even complete. We'll talk about a few of these projects in a couple slides. So, strategies for action. After analyzing the funding opportunities, the plan then outlines the initial steps into 3 main categories for action. These categories include 8 energy efficiency and conservation strategies, 6 water conservation strategies, and 4 public health strategies. All of these are driven from the initial input from the public to prioritize the actions and align them with funding. One of the next slides that we will look at in these strategies, I'll break down into further detail. So this is what a page looks like for one of the actions. We'll look at this item. This is W3.0 from the Water Conservation Strategy. W3.0 outlines water conservation in municipal parks and lawns, conveniently since we're talking about Parks and Rec tonight. In an example of this, we also have 2 sub-actions in this item W3.1, which includes developing water conservation strategies and timelines for implementation within our park system, and W3.2, which outlines researching restoration of natural water storage in our watershed. The background also gives some calculations and justifications for these actions. This example states that the city currently maintains over 4,305 acres of park and open space in Butte-Silver, and approximately 1,600 of those are being irrigated, including things like cemeteries. Using the EPA water calculator and assuming 1 inch of water per week 1 inch of water per acre per week, that equates to approximately 521 million gallons of water being used during a 12-week summer watering period. This can then be used as a baseline to discuss water conservation in our parks and open spaces. To the side of this page, you can see that each action is then weighted for ease of implementation, cost of implementation, amount of enhanced resilience to the community. These actions are then broken down into which department in Butte-Silver would potentially partner to achieve them, the target of the goal, the timeline, who community partners might include, potential funding sources, and other potential benefits from these actions. To underscore the importance of this unique funding-centric approach in this plan, this diagram illustrates funding that has been identified in this project and has been awarded to Butte-Silver to date. I'll point out just a couple of these. The Forest Service Urban Forestry Grant was awarded in 2023 for $142,250. Butte-Silver Bowl was one of only 2 communities in Montana that was awarded this funding, the other being Billings, Montana. This money was identified because of the public input from Step 2, which had positive support for initiatives that were related to green infrastructure. If you recall from previous slides, the community also identified that they felt the largest impact of risks would be to people with medical conditions, children, and low-income households. To find a larger amount of money and help direct that money to an area of town where it would have the biggest impact, the grant utilized a national initiative called the Justice 40 Initiative, which allocates 40% of the funding to predetermined disadvantaged populations. Census Tract 6, an area near Stodden Park, was one of these 2 areas that were identified as Justice 40 tracts in Butte-Silver Bow and was able to receive this larger funding. This methodology was also used in the grant application to justify and obtain these funds. Now, if you look down at the Department of Natural Resource Council, DNRC, awarded Butte-Silver Bow $50,000 to complete a drought management plan for Butte-Silver Bow. This project is underway and will take the same approach as the SHARP plan, turning that $50,000 investment into real projects and a high return on investment. All in all, nearly $500,000 has been awarded to Butte-Silver Bow as a result of this plan just being in progress. Keeping in mind that the SHARP effort was paid for by a grant and did not cost Butte-Silver Bow any money, it's a pretty good return for the dollar. When we talk about the importance of having these plans ready to go that align with funding, I wanted to just take a moment and talk about the historic national funding packages that are being released at the federal level. At the end of 2023, $2 billion was released as one of the largest investments into environmental justice in history as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Within the SHARP plan, 4 of the actions outlined in the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Strategy align with this funding. In addition, the Water Conservation Strategy and Public Health Strategy have 5 separate actions that also align with this funding. This was a very intentional move that recognized that this funding release aligned with projects that Butte-Silver Bow can then pursue. Then, in April of 2024, the White House recently announced a historic $20 billion to award clean energy and climate solutions. Of this funding, 70%, over $14 billion, has been announced to be invested in low-income and disadvantaged communities. Using the Climate and Economic Justice Screening tool, as shown on the kind of top corner of the screen here, Butte has 2 census tracts that qualify as disadvantaged for this funding and then therefore are a perfect fit for this. The categories that we qualify for include health, housing, legacy pollution, water, wastewater, and workforce development. Depending on which screening tool you use, such as the EPA one that's shown a little lower, we also include a slightly larger bit of Butte, depending on the screening tool for the grant. The SHARP plan not only outlines projects and programs that are eligible for funding, but provides the language and justification for the grant applications. This will reinforce other plans in Butte-Silver Bow and provide a direct connection to things like housing and workforce development for environmental justice and climate action, so we can actually make the action happen in Butte-Silver Bow. And with that, we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stephen and Megan and Julia. Do commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Great presentation. Looks like a great plan moving forward. I guess out of the funding, is that how WET gets paid out of this, and what is their bill?
Yep,
Commissioner Fisher, Ms. Terry.
We were actually, so the National Center for Appropriate Technology secured a grant. Through that grant, they put out an RFP through the Resilient Butte Group, and then we were paid from that grant.
Follow up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive. And the amount, please.
Yeah. Commissioner Fisher, Ms. Terry.
It was $50,000 in all.
Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I'm going to ask you a tough question. Page 4 says ensure a clean and healthful environment for all residents. So how does this tie into the Superfund, and how is it going to be with the BIPSU and the
Commissioner Sorge, Director Crane.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorich, one of the vision statements within the comprehensive plan is to provide for a clean and healthful environment. And in this particular process, during the Eco-Adapt workshops, contaminated sites were explored as a potential risk if we had an extreme flooding event, for example. And knowing that we have a waste in place remedy here, and if we were to have a really profound water event, those wastes could potentially be mobilized. And what this would provide for is if there were perhaps stormwater infrastructure investments that we could make in this community that would meet climate objectives but also address potential migration of contamination, we would be positioned to apply for grant funds with the use of this plan as the guiding framework.
Thank you, Director Crane. Follow up, Commissioner Sorge.
So just a quick comment. So this could be an enhancement to the...
Sorry, could you repeat that?
This could be an enhancement to the consent decree and what's being...
Commissioner Sorge, Director Crane. You're good.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorich. Yes, it would be an enhancement, but it also expands beyond the Superfund contamination we have in this community and would be able to address possibly any contamination associated with brownfield sites, which maybe are more petroleum-based, and possible migration of those contaminants, which also could cause harm environmentally as well. So it's not just an enhancement to Superfund, but an expansion of the funds that would be available to contend with industrial contamination present in the community.
Thank you, Director Crane.
Thank you, Julie.
Any other questions? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Julia, Mr. Crane, you mentioned the brownfield sites, and we had grant money some years back. Do we still have any grant money left for those sites, or has that all been used?
Commissioner Callahan, Director Crane.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Callahan, yes. Butte-Silver collaborates with our partners at the Butte Local Development Corporation, which administer the Brownfields program, where they coordinate resources through grants to allow property owners to do environmental assessments on those properties. What this could possibly leverage is providing grant money to do remediation on those sites or creative projects that could mitigate the potential of dispersal of those contaminants into the community.
And just follow up to that, Commissioner Callahan, BLDC is really soliciting some projects around the brownfields because there's money available, and we're trying to find businesses that are looking to potentially develop in those areas because there is, and we need a project moving forward as well. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. And just on one more point on that, just like he was saying, they are soliciting it, but along the loan line too, not just the grant line, and it is a 2% interest to like personal developers, and then if you're a city or a municipality, it's a 1% interest rate. So just a plug for the Brownfields program if anybody's looking.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. That's a good point. So just adding to this a little bit, the SHARP plan is so instrumental in funding sources and being ready to be able to apply for grants. And it also leverages private dollars as well. When we're looking at projects and things, that we're able to go to private investors to help with some of these things, to maybe leverage some other dollars that are available federally. So this is, I want to thank the team for the work that they've done. It's, from my understanding, when you went back east just a few weeks ago, we were, our community was applauded for the work that has been done by our team here. And so I just thank you for all the hard work that you've done. Any other questions? Thank you. Okay. Moving on to Section 2, Communications, A1 through 4 and B1 through, I should have the number, but I don't, 1 through 32. Do we have any friendly amendments and or segregations? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. A couple of friendly amendments to the committee of the whole section. Oh, sorry.
We already did those, and then so.
I think we need to do the public hearing part.
Oh,
Proponents
yes, we do need, I forgot, that was a public hearing, not just a presentation. Yes, I will open the public hearing. First call for proponents. Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents. Next, we'll move to opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. We'll close the public hearing. Thanks for getting me on that. All right, now we will go to section 2, communications, A 1 through 4, B 1 through 32. Do we have any friendly amendments and or segregations? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just a couple of amendments to this week's, last week's Committee of the Whole. On Section 1, the bid openings, number 2 and number 3. Number 2 was referred to Parks and Public Works, and number 3 was referred to Facilities and Government Buildings, those bids.
Okay.
The report shows that they were held, but I think that was just a typo or
Typo.
something.
Okay.
And then I would like to segregate number 7, communication number 2024-258, and one more friendly amendment to number 10, 2024-261. I've been asked to amend this recommendation to refer this to the Land Sales Committee.
Okay. Do we have any more segregations? Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Not a segregation or friendly amendment, just a quick question. Did we do proof of publication just on that public hearing, just so
You are
everything's
correct.
clear and good?
That's where my presentation, I goofed up. So, County Attorney 5, did we have proof of publication on the public hearing?
Chief Executive Gallagher, that's a great question. I haven't seen that, but I believe I was working with Julie on this before today, and that she did have it published.
Director Crane, could you come up and verify proof of publication?
Chief Executive Gallagher, yes, this was published last Tuesday and this yesterday, twice within the last 6 days. I can provide proof of publication from column support tomorrow morning, or I can look for it right now.
Okay. Thank you, Director Crane. Okay. If you could just forward that on so we just have it documented. Thank you. Okay. Now, moving back to section 2. Okay. Item number 7, communication number 2024-258, JP Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher adopt an agreement with Marsh McLennan to provide workman's compensation insurance for Butte-Silver Bow for the 2024-2025 term year. I have Mr. Rhodey Holman here from Marsh McLennan to come and talk to us about this. So Commissioner Shea.
I think we missed the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Oh God. I
We're
don't know
having a
what's
rough
going on.
night tonight.
I think it's the
because
4. I think it was the 4.
It's because of Sean.
I think it's the 4
leaving.
o'clock in the morning. Stay awake till is what it was. So
Let me make that motion really
Yeah.
quick to approve Section 2 communications, A 1 through 4 committee reports, B 1 through 32, with the exception of item 7, communication number 2024-258. And is that the only segregation? I think so.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you. I'd like to segregate number 12, number 2024-262.
Okay, I will amend my motion to include the exception of number 12, communication number 2024-263.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote to approve tonight's consent agenda? It's me. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. I think I'm trying to make it hard on you on your first chairmanship here. All right. Now, moving back to item number 7, communication number 2024-258. I already read through that. So, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I was just see that Mr. Holman's in the audience and would like to give him an opportunity to talk about the benefits to Butte-Silver Bow and the benefits to the Butte-Silver Bow taxpayers associated with this contract.
So, welcome, Mr. Holman. I want to talk about how we got here. And Butte-Silver Bow has been part of the MMIA's workman's compensation program for a number of years. We're part of the a group of cities pool that created MMIA. But as we looked at the costs associated with staying with MMIA and work and with the state fund through Marsh McLennan, it became evident that the cost savings with Marsh McLennan was the best strategic plan for our community. But I'd like Rhodey to kind of talk us through the workman's compensation plan that Marsh McLennan through the Montana State Fund has presented to us. So welcome, Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, and thank you, Commissioner Shea, for segregating the communication. My name is Rhodey Holman. I work with Marsh McLennan Agency. I've been talking to the chief executive about approaching him on workers' compensation for the past couple of years. I know that the administration did not take this decision lightly. They did a thorough vetting of our program and what we had to offer in comparison to what they were getting from their relationship with MMIA. And it was, from my perspective, it was a clear hands-down winner that this was much more economical and there was a considerable cost savings for the benefit of the taxpayers of the city and county of Butte-Silver Bow. I've been in the insurance business for over 20 years, and I do a lot of public entity work. I do a lot of work with school districts. I do a lot of work with other counties in southwest Montana. And I knew that this was a good opportunity for the city and county to pursue. It had to come together very hurriedly as a result of certain notification requirements the city had with respect to its relationship with MMIA. So I did bring in a colleague. I was out of town for a couple days. I brought in a colleague from our Helena office to just help us put it together quickly. The benefits to the city and county of Butte-Silver Bow are immense, frankly. We feel like the combination of loss control, risk management services that Marsh McLennan and its carrier partner, the Montana State Fund, can bring to bear for the benefit of the city is only going to help the city in the long term. We really need to work together to try and control costs. One of the factors I work with a lot of my clients on is their experience modification factor. We really need to do a good job to hold that down and work on that. So we've already had discussions with some of the department heads on how we can do that, but you can expect an active team from Marsh McLennan and the Montana State Fund to help in that regard. The savings are considerable. The premium that you were quoted with the Montana Municipal Insurance Authority was almost $1.1 million. And we brought together a proposal that is roughly $680,000. So there's, nearly a 40% savings to the taxpayers. And again, I have to tip my cap to the administration. They asked the tough questions. They asked about the so-called bait and switch. I'll use that term. Know that Marsh McLennan Agency, as the largest placer of insurance premiums in the state of Montana, and the largest placer of insurance premiums with the Montana State Fund, are going to stand with the county, the city and county, to make sure that we can control those costs as we move forward. The state fund has been very aggressive. They want to write new business. You should find some comfort in the fact that there are 24,000 policyholders in the state fund, or in Montana, that are placed with the Montana State Fund, including the state of Montana. So the state of Montana has enough confidence in the Montana State Fund that it has placed its workers' compensation coverage with the Montana State Fund. So I really think it's a benefit to the taxpayers, and I think it's a statutory coverage, right? It's required by law that you provide workers' compensation coverage to your employees, period. So it's driven by statute. So really, what you really need to evaluate is what kind of services beyond price are you going to get, and we feel like we can stack that up compared to anybody with the Marsh McLennan resources as well as the Montana State Fund resources. So you'll find an active, engaged partner as it relates to your workers' compensation policy, and I look forward to working with the city and county as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. I wanted to add, we did go through and ask tough questions, and we have a certain loyalty to MMIA over the years that we were part of that, as Butte was one of the founding member cities of MMIA, and we will still continue with MMIA for our liability. But one thing that Mr. Holman did not touch on is they also have a dividend program that at the end of the year that there's a dividend savings or dividend that is sent back out to all the participating policyholders that is shared amongst everybody. That could be another cost savings for the community. So if you wanted to just touch on that, and then I'll let commissioners ask some questions.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chief Executive, for bringing that up. I neglected to bring that up. Yes, there is a dividend program associated with this program. This is a guaranteed cost program, so the premium that is quoted is it's all a function of your payrolls. If your payrolls are going to go up, then the premium will go up commensurate with that. But looking at the manual rates of the MMIA program versus the manual rates of the Montana State Fund program, there were clear savings there. But back to the dividend program, dividends cannot be guaranteed. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. However, the state fund has an extremely prominent track record with respect to dividends. They've declared and paid dividends over the past 30 years. So it's significant. It has been averaging. Last year it was around a 20% number. Again, please don't hold me to that percentage because, again, it's a function of how all policyholders do. And that's why it's really important for us to jump in with both feet to help the city and county as it relates to loss control and risk management and try and manage that process. But yes, it's a very attractive dividend program. It has changed. It used to be under the new leadership at the Montana State Fund. The prior leadership dividend program was loss sensitive, meaning that if good accounts that had good loss history performed well, then they were eligible for a dividend. The new leadership has made changes, and now it is a dividend that is available for all policyholders. And frankly, depending on which side of that knife you're on, that could cut both ways. But I do like that better because, as we all know, workers' comp claims do happen. And it really bothers me when under the old program we had a really good year going on with one of my insureds, and then lo and behold they have a bad claim, and then they lose the opportunity for a dividend. So I really do like this a little bit better. I think it plays better for larger public entities like the city and county of Butte-Silver Bow.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Any questions of commissioners? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Rhodey. Sounds almost too good to be true. Competitive markets are out there right now. And when you come in beating a 1.1 million bid to 680,000, where's the catch?
Commissioner Fisher, Mr. Holman.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Fisher, a fair question. There frankly is no catch. As I mentioned earlier, this is a guaranteed cost program. There are some workers' comp programs out there that are called retro plans, which is where an insured shares in the risk, both upside and downside risk, for their performance. So if they had a bad year, they could be on the hook for a certain retro premium, or if they had a good year, they could be on the benefit for a retro return. That is not the case with this. It's a guaranteed cost program. And frankly, guaranteed cost programs for public entities that rely on budgeted figures, that's really more appropriate. There is no catch. We've already had discussions with the Montana State Fund underwriters about making sure that we work together to hold that experience mod as best we can, so that we can make sure that we don't see significant rate increases in the future. The Montana State Fund, I'll have you know that over the past 17 years, 15 of those 17 years, they have lowered manual rates. 15 of those 17 years. Those 2 other years in the past 17 years, they've held rates constant. So workers' compensation, and again, with all due respect to the MMIA program, it was a great program. It served its purpose for a great number of years, but these pooled programs are having a difficult time, and I think that my involvement with the account, Marsh McLennan's involvement, and the state fund's involvement, we're going to do our level best to make sure that mod is maintained and managed appropriately so that we don't see any wide swings. You're going to be at a tier 3 rate. Right now, the Montana State Fund has tiers 1 through 5 rates, and your tier 3 rate, which is what the rate is that's quoted in front of you, you're guaranteed that rate for 3 years. And then, of course, we will work with the county and NCCI, which is the National Commission on Compensation Insurance. That is the organization that calculates experience mods for insureds throughout the country. And we will establish your experience mod, and then again, work hand in glove with the dedicated staff that you already have with the people that we have to make sure that we monitor and try and work carefully to control that mod. So there is no catch.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Holman. I'll follow up Commissioner Fisher, and then we'll come to Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Rhodey, thank you. It all looks good to me, but I'm at the age now where years ago, work comp was a thing, and you remember there's times, where the work comp subs, I call them subcons, whatever you want to call them, underwriters, whatever, they went broke. And a lot of guys were on work comp and waiting for their settlement. They had good lawyers, and they were in case and everything, and they ended up not getting nothing. That's a big concern for workers' comp people, because when you're a county employee and you're reaching retirement age, So I fully trust you, and I think it's a great idea, but, anytime something comes in like that, it's a little skeptical. So I appreciate all you're doing. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. As Mr. Holman was talking about those dividends, I seemed to remember last fall that their most recent dividend made actual news headlines, and so I did a quick Google, and it sure did. September 18th of 2023, Montana State Fund announces a $35 million dividend declaration to more than 24,000 policyholders across Montana. Montana State Fund has been around for a really long time, and I think they're one of the best kept secrets in the insurance world. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a wonderful savings to the taxpayers. The resources that they provide, even just their website, the resources that Marsh McLennan can provide, I think they're going to be very well utilized with our own safety teams, and really looking forward to the future with you guys with this plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea. Any other questions of commissioners? Seeing none. Commissioner Shea. Thank you. Mr. Holman.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I will make a motion to concur and place on file with communication number 2024-258.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file communication number 2024-258. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. See if we can get through this normally. Now, moving on to item number 12, communication number 2024-263. David Gary, Land Records Coordinator, requesting Council Commissioners to approve Council Communication number 2024-195, a request from School District Number 3 to purchase Butte-Silver owned property. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Talk about perfect timing. We just heard out there how important it is to have parks in our neighborhoods and what have you. And this piece of property is a park out in the Ramsey neighborhood. And I just would ask Mr. Aguirre if he could come up and explain kind of how we got to this point, and please.
Mr. Aguirre, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, members of council. For the record, David Gary, Land Records Coordinator. My understanding is the history, this has kind of been ongoing out there, that this was a dedicated parkland that was never maintained as a park, but Butte-Silver Bow leased to the Ramsey Commission, and they still to this day, and the school district has tried to bought it several times over the last few years, is my understanding, and met with some opposition in different spots, and they've since worked together with all the parties and have everybody on board for the school district to, in agreement for the school district to purchase the property if agreed to by the council and make improvements to the school as well as maintaining part of it for the park for the kids of Ramsey as well as the community.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Follow-up, Commissioner Callahan. Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Aguirre.
In what context? That Butte-Silver Bow never maintained it as a park?
It says it was never developed or maintained. Can you explain what they mean by not maintained?
I would say that Butte-Silver Bow doesn't water it or mow it or anything in that manner to take care of it.
Yeah.
Correct.
But the Ramsey people have developed it and maintained it. So it is a maintained and developed park. So if that was the impression at the land sales meeting, that this piece of property wasn't developed or maintained, that was false.
Commissioner Callahan, Mr. Aguirre.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Callahan, my understanding is that it is not Butte-Silver Bow maintained, developed or maintained parkland.
Thank you,
by
Mr.
Butte-Silver
Aguirre.
Bow.
Is your mic? Sorry.
Sorry.
Commissioner Callahan.
If I may, there's a couple of elders from the neighborhood out there that would like to get up and speak and kind of explain. They've got a lease on the property and explain what they've used it for and what have you. Jim, please.
Commissioner Callahan. Welcome.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher and members of the council. If I may, I have a couple pictures of the park. One picture is looking south, the other picture is looking north. There has been some misinformation about this deal, actually. There isn't necessarily a consensus among the people of Ramsey that this should be sold to the school at this time. It's not that we're actually opposed to it. Our understanding with the Parks and Recreation Board was that there would be an agreement, a written agreement, between the Ramsey Association and the school for the continued availability and use of this park for the citizens of Ramsey. The citizens put in a sprinkler system. We water it at no expense to Butte-Silver Bow. The history of it is the property was donated to Butte-Silver Bow and then immediately leased back to the Ramsey Association. We have approximately 70 years left on that lease. So it is a dedicated, well, you can see from the pictures, it's a nice park. We use it for Easter egg hunts. We've had community picnics there. It's not, really well used as far as parks go. There's not a huge volume of people using it, but it is used. So, but our biggest issue is, our understanding was that there would be the agreement as specified, and it has not at this time, although we've given them drafts of potential agreements for the use, hasn't happened. And so I guess I would say this recommendation for this action is premature. The agreement isn't complete yet. We're not necessarily opposed to the school taking over the park. It is a burden for the association to take care of it. We have a difficult time finding people to mow it and maintain it in the summertime, but it is at this time mowed, and it has a sprinkler system, it has lighting. It is a developed park and is a central part of Ramsey, and it is used. The school uses it a lot for their activities and stuff. And again, we're not necessarily opposed to having it, become part of the school, but we are opposed to not having a structured agreement that says going forward, Ramsey Association will have some say in what happens to that park. Now, when we went to Parks and Recreation, Kathy Tuddy, who was a member of that board, specifically told us without that, Ramsey Association would have no say in any action that takes place with this park going forward. We just want to make sure that it's still available to the residents of Ramsey before we give up what remains of a 100-year lease.
Commissioner Thatcher and then Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Just one really quick question. Will you just say your name and last name
I'm sorry.
will you just give your name and last name just so I can write it down?
Yeah.
Just
It's
for your comment.
James Ayres, Ayres, and I live at 13 Laird in Ramsey.
Okay, and then
Okay, follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
I guess part of my understanding with this, I was a Ramsey Ram, so this is a little bit near and dear. So part of this is my understanding is the modulars aren't the safest unit for the school, which I would definitely agree with. I guess I'm understanding is that the modulars would be eventually either taken down and something safer would be implemented within that space. Am I on basis there? Or
Yeah,
am I-
you're exactly right. That is
Commissioner
my
Thatcher,
understanding.
Sorry, Mr. Ayers, sorry,
sorry.
I'm just doing procedure.
Okay, sorry.
So, yeah.
I wasn't
Mr.
until
Ayers,
4 in the
you're
morning.
good.
My understanding is the school would like to replace the modulars, and I would say that most of the residents in Ramsey are in support of the school's expansion, but we don't know. I mean, we have Principal Kellogg's word that we will continue to be able to use the park, but I think there are unforeseen things that could happen going forward. We would just like to have a more formal agreement. We're not trying to prevent them from buying the park. We just would like to have this agreement before they actually end up buying it, and we give up our lease.
Follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Jim. I guess part of my question is, how would Ramsey School District enter into an agreement with a property that they don't own yet?
Commissioner Thatcher, I think that's one of the questions I would have too, and is that I think that Ramsey would have to be allowed to assume this property, that Butte-Silver Bow would do that, and then they can enter into an agreement. I don't think Ramsey can enter into an agreement with something that they don't own yet. So I think that there's a little bit of confusion there. And I'm going to ask Director Frederickson. He was a part of the Parks and Rec board, and he may have a little bit. He was, I think, in the Parks and Rec board meetings. If he could come forward and we could ask him for some of the information that was provided to the Parks and Rec board on this behalf.
All right.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'm Sean Frederickson, Parks and Rec Director. So yeah, this has been a very long process. Back when Chief Executive Gallagher was Parks and Rec Director. And we, as the board, recommended the sale of this property way back then. And it turns out that we did have a lease, Butte-Silver Bow does, with the Ramsey Association. Then a couple of years later, the new superintendent or principal came to the board saying that the school would like to expand to purchase that property. We asked quite a few different questions, and then I think COVID-19 hit, and that got put off for a couple more years. So once we got through that, the principal came back, and it was our understanding that the association had polled every one of their members, and everyone was in agreement that the property would be able to be sold. And then, from what I remember, everything was fine. The superintendent had worked with the association, and that we were good to sell this property. So it's a little bit concerning that we have two members from Ramsey which I'm not sure if they're representing the association or not. That would be a great question to ask them. But it's our understanding at the board meeting that everything was good and that we would recommend this sale go to council.
Thank you, Director Frederickson. I'd like to invite Mr. Ayers back up and just for a second. And Mr. Ayers, do you have full authority to represent?
I am not on the board at the Ramsey Association. I am only a member. And where this comes into being controversial about whether or not we have given full permission to enter into this agreement, what happened was the day before Thanksgiving of last year, they went around and hung a note on people's front doors, and it said, should the school move forward with the possibility of buying this park? And they asked for responses. Well, there are seasonal residents in Ramsey. There are houses that are currently sitting vacant. What we believe is this wasn't really an authorized or proper vote. And then they're using what we consider basically a survey and saying that gives us authority to enter into this agreement. So
Thank you,
that's,
Mr.
I
Ayers.
guess, why
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your perspective on this. I just, without having the board here that authorized this and to say that, I don't know if we can take your testimony as authorized of the Ramsey Association there to do that, because from my understanding and from what Director Frederickson said is that the Ramsey Association did say that they authorized the purchase of this. I think that the agreement that would have to go forward here would have to be in possession of Ramsey to own the land, to have the agreement with the Ramsey Association to dedicate that. I think that's the agreement is kind of like what you have with Butte-Silver. It would just kind of exchange what we have right here with their ability to go forward to make the improvements to the school. Commissioners, Commissioner Callahan.
I guess what my, through my conversations with numerous people from out there, I think the request is that they'd like to sit down with the association board members and the Park and Recs and come up with an agreement on just to justify, like Jim just said, if they totally turn over their lease and the school says, well, we can make money and sell part of this for some housing developer or something, and they lose their park, I think these folks want the guarantee that something like that won't happen. So that's why they'd rather have a contract to show rather than just somebody saying, well, we assure you that that won't happen.
Commissioner Callahan, okay. We'll go to Commissioner Fisher, Commissioner Thatcher, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. You think a title search would show that there was a lease on the property?
There is.
If you do a title search, and I don't know if we do title searches when Butte-Silver sells property, but a title search should show, and if a title search shows that
it does,
they have a lease, how can we sell property we don't own? I mean, that's kind of
Commissioner Fisher, I can answer that. It's if the Ramsey Association, their board authorized it, that's how it could happen. That's where I think we have a conundrum right here, is that I don't think Mr. Ayers is on that board or has representation for that, and their board did authorize it. That's where we have a challenge here. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Commissioner Callahan, I agree and I understand where he's coming from. I still just am of the stance, like Chief Executive Gallagher said, we, Parks and Rec, wouldn't enter into an agreement with these guys because we won't own the property. So it would have to be with the Ramsey School District. And I've spoken with one of the board members, school board members out at Ramsey. And she, they're very excited about this. And I think that another thing that we should consider, and while parks are important, Director Frederickson, I get it, so is the safety of our children. And so I think that with the improvements being made to the school, if we allow the purchase of this to go through. Me personally, and I can be totally wrong on this, but I personally think that the safety of the children those benefits outweigh. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. It was Commissioner Shea, then we'll go Commissioner Callahan, then to Commissioner Fortune.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So the conundrum is between the Ramsey School District and the Ramsey Association. There's nobody here from either of those organizations tonight. Is that right, or is there somebody out?
Commissioner Shea, so, yeah, Mr. Aguirre, if you'd like to come forward, I think you have
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shea. I probably should have said this at the beginning. Principal Kellogg called me this morning and let me know that he wasn't going to be able to make the meeting tonight. He had a conflict with his eighth grade graduation, so he's not here tonight. He wanted it to go ahead and go forward, but he wanted me to apologize to you guys for him not being here and let you know that he would be more than willing to come to a future meeting if your decision hinged on him answering a question.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Okay, follow up, Commissioner Shea.
Okay, that's good to hear, because that's kind of where I'm going with this. I tried to pop out to look at the Land Sales Committee meeting just to see what the public comment was, but the minutes aren't posted yet. I realize it's only been 2 weeks since that meeting. So I would like an opportunity to review that YouTube meeting, look at the minutes. I don't see them posted online. And I would really like an opportunity to have somebody from the Ramsey board and somebody from the Ramsey School District, whether it's somebody on the school board or whether it's the principal, to come and let us hear everything that they are saying, so we can make a really good informed decision, and everything is aired, and everybody knows what to expect going forward. Those are just my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea. Commissioner Callahan.
Thanks, Chief Executive Gallagher. I just want to comment to Hattie's about the safety of the children. Mr. Ayers came up with a good plan. The folks in Ramsey that's priority to them. I mean, that's why it's the neighborhood that it is. Their children are the most important. So they're not jeopardizing the safety of the children. Mr. Ayers had a plan to do different things with that property, and from what I understand, the school board wasn't interested. Is that not true, Jim? You can get up and...
Commissioner Callahan, yeah, I think that, part of that is just talking about the structure of the building and the expansion of the building. When they're talking about the modulars, that's the safety factor that she was talking about. Commissioner Callahan.
And I understand that, and they're more than willing to give up that part of, but this is 2 acres. The building isn't going to take 2 acres. I mean, it's a small part of the property that they're getting, that they're going to use for the expansion of the school. The whole 2 acres right now is what the park is.
Commissioner Callahan, thank you. So I think Commissioner Fortune, and then if we have a question from Mr. Ayers and Commissioner O'Neill. Okay.
Chief Executive, is there like an actual documentation that these guys agreed that they'll give up the lease?
Commissioner Fortune, and Mr. Aguirre, can you answer that? Was there any kind of documentation that was drafted?
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Fortune, no, what we've got is from the Land Sales Committee, Mr. Kellogg was there, and he shared the Land Sales Committee. Similar question came up, and that I believe he shared that he had an agreement with the Ramsey Association, but he didn't present any documentation or anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Follow up, Commissioner Fortune.
Chief Executive, I think we almost have to hold this until we get that documentation. Thanks for coming tonight, but if you're not on the board of the school board or the Ramsey board, I don't think it's the right time to. I think we need to hold it till them parties are here. I'd make a motion to hold it.
Okay, we have a motion to hold this communication, and we have a second. So we have a motion to hold it and then in a second, but we may have a substitute motion. So County Attorney Fyvie. So I think the question is, should we move this to the committee of the whole for it to be reviewed?
I think that's probably appropriate to make a motion to move it to the committee of the whole for further discussion and have those parties available to ask questions of.
Okay. So does somebody want to have a substitute motion or just change the motion? Okay, amend your motion.
Chief Executive, I'll just amend the motion to hold it to the committee of the whole meeting and allow both parties to come and make their cases and present to us.
We have a motion and a second to move this to the committee of the whole. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I just got one more question from Mr. Ayers.
Mr. Ayers, if you'd like to come up. Yeah, sorry, we're making you do aerobics there.
Is the Ramsey Association still a valid entity?
Commissioner
To be
Sorge,
honest
Mr.
with you,
Ayers.
Struggling.
Okay, but they're still in place, so.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They've been very loose in their structure, and some of these meetings, they've sent out email notices of the meetings, and many of the people in Ramsey don't even have the internet. They're older, and so it isn't, and really what we'd like you to do is take a little bit more time before you act on this so that we can get with them and get it straight. I'm sorry that we even had to bring it to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Thatcher, and then again to Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. So, Mr. Gary, will you get a hold of Mr. Kellogg, and then will somebody be in contact with the Ramsey Association and let them know that this is up for further discussion next week?
Commissioner Thatcher, Mr. Gary.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Thatcher, yes, Mr. Kellogg was planning on calling me tomorrow, and I'll figure out who is the Ramsey Association and how to contact them.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Follow up, Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'd make a substitute motion to hold this for 30 days to give these folks a proper amount of time to have a meeting with the right people and then bring it back to the council.
Do we have a second? Seeing none, that motion dies. Commissioner Shea.
I just did a quick Secretary of State search. The Ramsey Association is active in good standing, registered January 28th, 1948. The registered agent is Kathy Hammond, P.O. Box 24, Ramsey. And to Commissioner Callahan's motion, I think we can invite the parties next week. And if they can't make it, we can hold it in the committee of the whole until we can make that, get everybody here.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea. So we do have a motion and a second to move it to the committee of the whole. Anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please. Oh, sorry. Oh, we missed. I'm sorry. Okay. So, okay. Clerk, please record the vote, and then we'll record Commissioner Fortunes with it as a yay.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. 0 nay. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to, we already did section 3, so we'll move on to section 4, ordinances and resolutions introduced to the judiciary. We have 2 of them. Moving on to section 5, ordinances and resolutions for final reading. We have one resolution number 2024-23. Clerk, please read the caption. Caught you as you were standing up. Sorry about that, Claire. Yeah, it's section 5. So it's resolution number 2024-22.
A resolution approving comprehensive plan amendment number 24000001 to approve changes to the 2020 Butte-Silver Bowl comprehensive plan, incorporating by referencing the Butte-Silver Bowl housing strategic plan into appendix of the Butte-Silver Bowl comprehensive plan and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Shea.
Mr. Chief Executive, I believe that Director Crane has obtained physical proof of publication. Could you just verify that for me? County Attorney 5E or Director Crane?
County Attorney 5E.
Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Shea, it does appear as though Director Crane has brought up proof of publication for this public hearing, and it does appear to be in order.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, County Attorney 5E.
And thank you, Director Crane. And Director Burns, I think might have helped with that. So at this time, I would make a motion to move resolution number 2024-22 to final reading.
We have a motion and a second to move resolution number 2024-22 to final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote?
Got a bad battery.
Now, Commissioner Fisher, yours isn't. And it's not. There we go. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay. 8 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to section 6, ordinances and resolution for emergency suspension of the rules. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I hope I'm reading the right text here. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing resolution number 2024-20 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules and Order of Business of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for resolution number 2024-20. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. Moving to resolution number 2024-20. Clerk, please read the caption.
A resolution amending the budget during the fiscal year after conducting a public hearing at a regular scheduled meeting of the Council of Commissioners in accordance with Section 7-6-4006 MCA, appropriating unanticipated grant revenue from the National Arbor Day Foundation for the purpose of removing hazardous trees and restoring Stoughton Park and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I'll try to get the motion right this time. At this time, I move to place resolution number 2024-20 on final reading and passed at length.
We have a motion and a second placing resolution number 2024-20 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 0 nay.
8 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to the calendar and other meeting events, please note the dates and times of those meetings. And so next I'll move on to any public comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight. Please come forward, state your name, address, and what you would be speaking on. Seeing none, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn after I let the public know and the commissioners know. Barb reminded me, we don't have a meeting on July 3rd, so I want to give the public plenty of notice. We have 5 Wednesdays in July, so we'll skip the first week so everybody can enjoy the holiday, and we'll convene the next 4 weeks. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Sorry for stumbling through after being gone for a couple weeks. No, it was me. Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, you got to take your Jeep down there, Justin. It's actually fun. You know, the 2 Jeeps we were in, they were pretty much stock. No, they weren't. Nothing. Seems like there's plenty of people that if you had an issue, you could get out of there. There's a ton of people. Well, there wasn't a lot of people, but there was enough where we've seen a few, but it's fun.